For our final project, we conducted research about how carbon emission in Chapel Hill would be reduced if more bus lines were added. So we focused on mainly bus usage and how their carbon emissions can be reduced with the addition of more bus lines. Specifically, how they decrease the carbon emissions in the town of Chapel Hill specifically. Um, we used several scholarly articles dealing with bus carbon emissions and ways to make them more efficient, along with information regarding buses and their carbon emission in the Chapel Hill area. We used the University of North Carolina 2018 greenhouse gas report, which reported the carbon emissions numbers for the university rather than the city itself, since it was the most recent report for the city. Um, other information wasn't publicly available. This was the only article that was publicly available that we could use. By using these resources, we came to a conclusion regarding the exact ways in which carbon emissions would be reduced if Chapel Hill added more bus lines to the Chapel Hill transit system.
And what we found with this research, we found that the Chapel Hill transit system produces 5,000 GHG emissions every year for students and staff that use the bus system. And that consists of that is 18% of the GHG emissions produced by students and staff commuting to the university in total. Um, the excessive stop and go of buses, along with their load, can cause fuel emissions to rise since they have to completely stop and completely get back up to speed. And with more bus lines, the passenger load will decrease uh, as the times buses stop and go will. And then improvements in technology have been able to make buses more carbon efficient than cars, which would further prove that more bus lines would decrease the carbon emissions. And the way we interpreted this was that due to the introduction of new and more efficient technology, the bus lines will become more carbon friendly as a whole. And this is because with new buses, such as the diesel electric hybrid buses, there's less carbon emitted from them into the atmosphere. Um, and so with this, we will see with an increase of bus lines, it will not harm the atmosphere as much from carbon emission because 10 to 20 years ago, when we did not have technology similar to this, an addition of bus lines might have created too much carbon being released from the buses as a whole, and would not have been as efficient as it would be now. But now, with more regulation and more technology, uh, it becomes a lot more carbon efficient. And then with more bus lines, it will also allow more people to take fewer buses to get to their destination. Meaning that if people can go from, let's say on the chart here, if people can go from this one, if they want to go from 1 to 15, they'll have to go through a lot more bus stops to get there. However, if we added a line that went from 1 to 11 to 15, they would only have to take two total buses to get to their destination. And this means that the direct routes will decrease the number of passengers per bus on bus from stop one that goes towards two. There won't be as many passengers on that one, um, meaning that their load will be less and that there will be less weight on it, decreasing the fuel efficiency and increasing the carbon emissions. And it will also mean that buses will have to stop and start less since there will be fewer people at each bus stop wanting to go to different places. Each bus stop will have more people wanting to go to the same place, meaning they will not have to stop and start at each stop, which will decrease the amount of carbon emitted per trip which the bus takes.
In conclusion, we found that taking fewer buses would decrease carbon emissions by offering a direct route to more destinations, that these direct routes will decrease the stop and start of buses, so the acceleration of buses is what creates the most carbon emission, and by direct routes going straight to their destinations, it will decrease these stop and starts, which did lower the carbon emissions. Direct routes will also decrease the number of passengers per bus, which decreases the weight and increases fuel efficiency, along with decreasing carbon emissions. Um, the introduction of newer technology will allow buses to continue to be more carbon efficient, and the addition of more bus lines will also improve that even further.